Mic check. All right, good. Okay. Hello, my people. What are you doing?
So far, sir.
Ah. How is this Saturday's working out?
Not so bad. It's a lot better than doing it on Mondays.
I agree as well.
All right, a little bit more, hopefully relaxing, and hopefully not too stressful. As I keep saying, I've been through CSA, so like one of my life goal is to try and make it actually less stressful. CSA is already super stressful already. It's also less stressful than it was, but you guys wouldn't know because you have nothing to compare it to. So it just seems like it's stressful now, but it used to be much more stressful, at least for computing, I can say for that. So we have hopefully made things a little bit easier. I think moving to online also helped computing out a lot as well. So that hopefully contributes to the reduction in stress. Okay, welcome one and all. So today is we're gonna do exercise 4 today, right? Which is going to be the second exercise in Illustrator. And then we're done with Illustrator. And then we are on to InDesign. All right, so we're on this software train and we're just making stops and keeping it moving, right? So if just some general updates, I did go through and update the class website. Let me make sure refresh. Hopefully updated it to Saturdays. Hold on, I think there is one little thing to correct here. Let me correct that. Also, while I correct that, there are also your grades. Remember, whenever you do the work, you can also check on the grades as well. So continuously always check that and let me know if there are any discrepancies, missing ID numbers, anything like that. Preferably before the end of the semester for sure. All right. The class participation, that should be updated as well, but it's not showing. I'll check that. I'll check on that in a bit. Right. Let's see this thing. All right. I see maybe a little bit less than half the class here now. All right, let me check on this thing now to see what's up. Oh, okay. I see the issue here. This should be 10. All right, cool. Yeah, so I corrected the website, the timeline, because there was something on it that was a little bit off. All right, it will update in a little bit, but pretty much the timeline has been updated to include the new Saturday classes, right? Because before it was on Mondays. So that doesn't really change anything much. Basically, what was on Monday would now be on Saturday, but I had to update the deadline and assignment dates. Right. So
we are going to be moving on to exercise 4 today. Before we do that though, we're going to have our little regular discussion talk. This time we're going to talk about another mysterious setting that we normally see on our computer relating to digital design that I want you guys to know about, right? So we're going to talk a little bit about that, and then we're going to dive into exercise 4, which is going to be the Illustrator exercise 2. This one is going to be a little bit exciting. So I hope everybody is ready. All right, so before we dive into that, I wanted to show you guys a picture. All right, here we go. I think I showed you guys this picture already. Let me maximize it. This is the origin. Is this the original one? Hold on. Was this the one with the photograph? No, this one was actually modified. I can't even remember. Anyway, the fact is, you guys are seeing the picture now.
Yes,
hold
sir.
on. Am I sharing? Oh yeah, good. Right. So I'm back showing a picture of Nate. All right. This is when it was about 4 or so. All right. It's like 13 now. Oh my goodness, I'm old. Anyway, what I wanted to show you was the properties of this picture. Now, every picture that's on your computer, whether it's a photograph from a camera or something you downloaded from the internet, you can always look in the properties to see some specs about the picture, like the resolution, the DPI, and so forth, right? So this is one way that we can do that. Another way, so if I bring up my folder of pictures, here is that same picture here. And if I right click and I go to properties, you will see this dialog box comes up. And I think most of us are supposed to be used to this. So for example, from this properties dialog box, we can see like where on the computer this file is located, the size of the file, you know, when it's modified and that stuff. If we head over to details, right, we see some additional stuff for this image. One second here. Zoom into this thing. Right. We see some additional information that is here. All right. Can you guys see this? Yeah, you should be able to see the screen. All right. Right. So we see this information, and most pictures that you have on your computer, most photos, you can go into properties and see a little bit more information. We call this metadata, right? And images have a whole bunch of metadata attached to it. Usually it's just when it's created, when it's modified, but this is some additional ones. This tells us, for example, the resolution and that stuff. But I want us to look at this guy here, which is the bit depth. And this is something that, I don't know, it is something that's usually a kind of a mystery. I think it's my job to kind of show you guys these things so you understand what the heck is some of these numbers mean. Like what's a 24-bit image. We already looked into what is resolution, and we already looked into what is DPI, and we look into image size. So we're just going into some other stuff now that you may have seen on you whenever you look at the properties of an image. And it's going to be bit depth. And this is the one that we want to talk about a little bit. And it sometimes can get a little confusing, but my objective here is to bring some clarity to what this is, because bit depth is not resolution, it's not DPI, it's a whole nother setting that we don't usually interact with, but it affects us because we're going to have to save files in different file formats. Anybody can give me some ideas of file formats? Anybody?
PDF,
Image file formats.
JPEG,
JPEG. Give me some more.
Screenshot.
Right. PNG. Right. TIFF. PDF, yes. And we learned last week that PDF is one of those file formats that can store vector information. We learned that JPEG, PNG, TIFF, those file formats can't store vector information. When we're saying vector, we're talking about line. Those file formats can only store pixels, right? But a PDF or an EPS file can store vector information. But there's another property of image or raster or pixel-based file formats, JPEG, PNGs, and these things, that is somewhat of a mystery, and that is called bit depth. And we're going to touch a little bit on what exactly is bit depth, because every image that you have has bit depth there. And I want to Photoshop and show you some stuff. When you go into Photoshop, for those of you who probably use Photoshop a lot, you might come across this whole bit depth thing. And like when I used to use Photoshop, I used to just avoid it. Like I don't know what the heck bit depth was and how it affects anything. And chances are, even when you know it's not something that you would necessarily edit, but it is what helps to define somebody who is like in a professional role of working with digital files versus somebody who is not in a professional. So meaning that a lot of these things comes into play when you start to really dive into digital design. So we're going to kind of go a little bit below the surface here, right? Let me just open up Photoshop here. Okay, it's taking its own sweet time. So in the meantime, here we go. Right. So we already know about what is I'm going to call some names: bitmap image, raster image. They're the same things. So whenever we refer to images that are made up of pixels, depending on the software you're using, you might see it call it raster images or bitmap images. So technically you can't just say the word image, because an image can be a vector image, right? Or it can be an image made up of lines, or it can be an image made up of pixels, right? So a bitmap image or a raster image is an image that's made up of square dots. And we checked this out already. We zoom into the photo already in Photoshop, and we saw that we could zoom right into the pixels. Every image that exists on a digital device has what's called a bit depth. And the reason this is important, this is why you might have a cell phone that can't open a type of file. So every file format has different features. Think of it as superpowers, right? Some of us are already familiar with these. What's the advantage of a JPEG file? Anybody can tell me? What's its superpower? I think Joel was just about to say it to me. No, man, Joel was just about to talk. Don't it, Joel?
No, sir.
But Joel, I'm sure you've used JPEG files before. What do you think is one of the advantages of JPEGs?
Repeat, sir.
In your opinion, what do you think is one of the advantages of a JPEG file?
It's clear and you can send it.
Cool. You can send it. You can send it all over the place.
Yeah.
All right. Catherine, I see your hand.
Sir, I was gonna say it's compatibility.
Right. So it's very flexible. It's very flexible. All right. Let me go a little bit up on the complexity scale. PNG. Who works with PNG here? Anybody ever work with a PNG file? What's the superpower of a PNG image file? What was that, Jessica? Jessica Lynn?
Yes, sir. Sorry.
You were about to say something?
No, sir.
I just put you on the spot. I just messing with you. But anyway, any idea? Have you ever worked with PNG files?
I have never, sir.
Okay, cool.
I mean, PNG.
Right, just like how you have JPEG, you have PNG.
Well, I just know it's an image file, sir. That's really all.
Okay, cool. Cool, fair enough. Anybody else? Nobody works with PNGs? All right, cool.
So is it a file like when you use it, it has a transparent background, but the actual image is preserved?
That is a very good answer. And you're correct, yes. A PNG has a transparent background. So its superpower is that it has a transparent background. So JPEGs, very flexible. JPEGs will work almost on any device, anywhere from phones to, I don't know, I guess a watch, if it has a screen. Most electronic devices are coded to work with JPEG. PNGs may not be so popular, right? But PNG has a transparent background. So, for example, like let's say this presentation that I am showing you here now, right? I mean, this is the PowerPoint document that's here, and these are different slides. This is that cover page that you saw right there, right? And where's that JPEG image? Okay, hold on, I'm gonna just carry this to the side here. So I can drag a JPEG image in my PowerPoint file like this, and a lot of people do this. You know, you put images in your PowerPoint and that kind of stuff. But if I put a PNG image here, let's say this one, then notice that this image has this person cut out. So the PNG has a transparent layer, and that is usually the most flexible, because we can see this image here with Nate, but he would have to be cut out, whereas with a PNG it's cut out. But if I saved this PNG file as a JPEG, what do you think would happen, guys? Anybody?
Sir, would the background become visible?
That is exactly so, right? Here is that PNG file here, and if I'm just using Windows to do this, and I'm going to say save a copy, and I'm going to save a copy in the same folder. It's here, but this time I'm going to save it as a JPEG, right? And look at all of these different file formats that I can save it as: TIFF, BMP, JXR. You have JPEG as in JPG and JPEG, right? And then you have PNG. So I'm going to save it as a JPEG, a JPG, right? All right, there you go. So now I'm going to drag that image into my PowerPoint, and what do you know? What do you notice happen? It's flipped. It has a white background. So we already know that. Okay, so for JPEGs, when you save an image as a PNG, it will save a transparent background. Now, it doesn't mean that it will do it automatically, right? If this is an image here, so this is that new JPEG image that I have here, and I can always just go to edit again, and I can go save a copy, and I can resave this as a PNG. I'm gonna call it resave. All right, what do you guys think will happen? So will it go back to transparent? Place your bets. Anybody?
No, sir.
Yeah, man, I see your hand, Garden. And somebody said no. Right.
I would say no because it wasn't its original file format.
Well, the original file format was PNG, which is this guy that you see here drinking the mug. But then I just saved it as a JPEG and it lost the transparency. And then I'm like, oh crap, let me save it back as a PNG. But when I save it back as a PNG and I carry it back into PowerPoint, you notice that it doesn't have the transparency anymore. It goes back to just a white background, even though it is a PNG. So what does this tell me? A PNG file, it has the ability to save a transparent layer, but it don't mean that all PNGs automatic. Once you have a PNG file, it means that the person or the car or the tree is cut out, right? But PNG is certainly the only file format that you can depend on to have a transparent background. All right, guys? So if you carry something in Photoshop and you cut out the background and you want to save it with the background transparent, you have to save it as a what kind of file?
PNG.
Exactly. Now there are a bunch of other file formats there, and I don't think we have time to touch each one. GIF. Anybody know of a GIF file format?
Yes, sir.
What's the advantage of a GIF?
It's usually a very short playback.
Right. A GIF is a special image file that plays back as a video. And a lot of us know this because, you know, WhatsApp now has an option to send as GIF, right? For quite a while now. So if I was to get a GIF file, and you can get some great files on the internet from Jiffy, there we go, GHIFY, I think that's it. No, GIPHY, Jiffy, which is a pretty cool website that has a lot of GIFs. In particular, it has a lot of stickers, which is every time I come here they change up the site. Stickers, there we go. So stickers, now you can get transparent GIF files, and the great thing about this is that I can I can click here, oops, go back, maybe this one, and I can download this. Are you really going to have to let me sign in? I don't feel like signing in right now, so I'm going to download this. Then I can drag this GIF file in PowerPoint. And there you go. And come on, play. It should play. Maybe this one doesn't want to. Five. Yeah, there you go. So you see that GIF file is now playing in PowerPoint. So PowerPoint supports GIF, PNG, and JPEG. Now these different file formats, as I said, they each have their own superpower, but it doesn't mean that a device will support it. So for example, let's say you have I don't know, your phone. Your phone certainly does support GIF files, but there are other specialized file format like EXR. Maybe most of you have never heard of an EXR file, but that's a special file format. It is an image file, It is a raster or a bitmap image file, but your phones can't open an EXR file. As a matter of fact, you'll need a special program to open it. And just like any other file format, an EXR file has its own superpowers as well, right? So I just want to show you guys that there are different file formats, and each of these file formats has a different purpose. Now, regardless of the purpose of the file format, I think I'll save this as a presentation for next year. Anyway, let's go back here. Right. Now, regardless of the fact that each of them have different superpowers, all bitmap images have what you call a bit depth. And what a bit depth is, it's simply how much color, not necessarily how much color, but how much black, how much dots, how much pixels are stored in that image. So for example, this is what a 1-bit image looks like. It only has 2 possible color depths. It can either be black or it is white. What kind of device produces an image like this? Anybody know of a device that does produce images like this?
Scans?
Yeah, well, not a scan, but a photocopier. So I don't know if you noticed, but a photocopier is different from a scanner, right? A scanner, you're able to get images like this, and a photocopier, you can only get images like this. You know the reason why? And the reason that is because there is a bit depth limit to what a scanner can produce. So if a scanner said that it is only 2-bit, then it can only produce an image like this. It can only produce 4 possible shades of color. So this is why when you hear is an image a 2-bit image, is an image a 8-bit image, is an image a 16-bit image, it refers to how much shades of color is in that image. So a 1-bit image will look something like this. It can either be black or it is white. Whereas a 8-bit image will look something like this because it has 256 possible shades of black. So the higher the number of bits is the more color dense, or the more information that can be stored, the more shades of black in this case. The less the bit is, the less possible shades of color, right? So this image that you're seeing here with the letter A, these pixels are either black or white. Hence, this is a 1-bit image, which pretty much you hardly ever see. Maybe you will see a 4-bit image because photocopiers print that kind of an image. When you put something in a photocopier, it come out like this or even like this, right? And because of that, photocopiers can be really fast, right? If you ever see people using photocopiers and it's good. Anybody here ever use a scanner? Of course, most people.
Yes, sir.
Right. And you realize the scanner have to go like, it have to take its little time and scan. And that's because it's collecting more bit depth. It has to collect more color, more shades of a particular color. So for every pixel that it has to project, it has to decide, where in the four shades of black does the pixel by the eye fall? And it determines that. And where in these 4 shades does the pixel by the ears reach? And it basically goes through the image that it's scanning and determines, out of all of these 4 colors, what is the closest shade to accurately represent the image. So of course a scanner now has much more shades. So it has enough shades that when you look on the graph here, your barely even seeing where it changes shades because it has 256 possible shades. So for every pixel that is in a black and white image, it has to determine, oh, is this image pixel shade 10 or pixel shade 12? Is it pixel shade 200 or pixel shade 201? All the way up to 256. So we're coming back to the whole where we started. When we click on an image on your computer, we notice that it says a bit depth of 24, right? So far, we've looked at a bit depth of 4, and we know that, oh, that's a horrible looking image, right? So I'm going to continue moving. Now, when you have a black and white image like this, this is a 8-bit image because it has 256 possible shades of gray to represent this image. And if you look at this image, you say, oh, well, I mean, that's fine because it's black and white and it looks pretty sharp. And the reason that it looks like realistic is because, as you know, with pixels, you know, if I zoom into this image, you will see where it, you know, every pixel has its own shade of gray. But the trick is that once it is an 8-bit image, you can only choose between shade 1 and shade 256. It has to fall in one of those slots. All right, guys? So this is what you would call an 8-bit image, right? Everybody following me so far, guys? What am I doing that time? Okay, it's like 15 days. Everybody following me? Who is following me? Give me a thumbs up. All right, cool. Lovely. We're still here and we're still alive. When you get to color, it's a little bit more tricky because who remembers what is a primary color? Primary school days. What are primary colors? Go ahead, Rochelle.
Red, yellow.
What was that?
Red, yellow.
Oh man, you're gonna have to type it. Your voice not coming through. All right. While you're typing, anybody else? What are primary colors?
Red, yellow, and blue.
Well, that is certainly what they are, but why are they called primary colors?
Because you can get every other color from them.
Exactly. And I just got an example of red, yellow, and blue as primary colors. Are there any more primary colors that exist?
Cyan.
Colors.
Magenta.
The S.
Magenta, sir.
Yeah, so that is 2. Keep going. What's the other one?
Green.
Ink. You got 75%.
Yellow, sir.
Yellow, exactly. Cyan, magenta, and yellow. Why are those primary colors? Because?
Sir, is it because there's no color combination you can mix to obtain it?
That's another way of looking at it. But I like the definition from the other side, which is you can mix cyan, magenta, and yellow to get any possible color. So those are 2 sets of primary color: red, yellow, and blue, cyan, magenta, and yellow. Are there any others? Any others, guys?
I don't think so.
You don't think so? There is one more. And it's a very popular one. I use it every day. And it's called RGB, which is
Red, green, black.
Nope, 75% again. You got one wrong. What's RGB?
Red, green, blue, sir.
Red, green, blue. So right now, you guys gave me 3 types of primary colors. Because remember, primary colors are colors that you can mix together to get any other possible color. So you can mix red, yellow, and blue. You can mix red, green, and blue. And you can mix cyan, magenta, and yellow. So the reason that you have different types of primary colors is because different technologies use them. So for example, any device that uses any kind of screen, your phone, your watch, your TV, your projector, the way that it displays color is mixing red, green, and blue. When you guys were in primary school and you were mixing color together, what am I saying primary school? You do this in first year. In first year with, who would it be? Miss Shabaka, right? That's what you do art with, right? Right, guys?
Yes, sir.
Did you guys mix paint?
No, sir.
Oh, I guess
I
that
think
would
it
be
was just high school days.
right. That would be more high school and primary school days. So remember when you used to mix paint in primary school, what colors do you used to mix together? What color? Nobody
It
remember
would
them,
just be a variety of colors here. You know that those little color palettes they get?
right,
Yeah, just mix those randomly.
right. But
This is
when
what
you learn about colors, you know that red, yellow, and blue, you can mix, you can use those colors to get any other color. So you used to use red, yellow, and blue to get any other color. In some cases, those palettes that you're talking about, they already have the color. They already have purple. But you could have mixed blue and red, and you would have still got purple. So when it comes to screen technology, it uses RGB. When it comes to paint, we use red, yellow, blue. So for example, when you want to repaint your room and you go to Berger and these places, and it needs, yeah, let's say you wanted to get a particular color, eggshell or some kind of unique color. And they say, well, here what? I can mix this color with a little bit of that color, and then I will get the color that you want. That's what they do. Now, as it relates to printers, printers use a special type of ink. And that technology uses cyan, magenta, and yellow. So different technologies use different primary colors to display colors. And that's how we come back to the computer, because every image that you see on the computer has a unique mix of red, green, and blue. So every pixel that you see on the screen, so for example, if I see a pixel that is here that I'm highlighting that is light blue, then all it is doing is mixing a certain amount of blue, maybe more blue, with a little bit of green and maybe a little bit of red. Like it can only mix these 3 colors to get every single color in an image. And each of these colors have 256 shades per color. And a lot of places, a lot of software refer to it as per channel. So almost any software you use, I don't know if you ever noticed, maybe you're using something on your iPad, maybe you're in Instagram and you're choosing some kind of a color range, maybe you're using SketchUp and you're choosing a color to fill, or maybe you're even using Photoshop and you're choosing a color. Anytime it is on an electronic device, you will notice that you're always choosing between 256 shades, usually, right? And the reason for that is that because literally that's how the computer displays color. It can display any one of the 256 shades of green and mix it with any one of the shades of the 256. Yeah. It can mix it with any one of the 256 shades of red, and then it mixes that with any one of the 256 shades of blue, right? So literally, if you open any image editing program, like when we open this image here from a few weeks ago, and we zoomed in and we realized that, okay, every pixel in this, these are all the pixels. Hopefully you guys can see this clearly. And every single pixel, my info panel. Yeah, every single pixel. I go over here. Every single pixel has a certain amount of value for red, green, and blue. So this has red 76, green 65, and blue 59. And this entire pixel here has the same shade. This one here has a different mix, and this one a different mix again, and this one a different mix again. So all your computer is doing, all your device is doing is mixing together shades of these three colors. And eventually, when you put all of these square dots together with the different colors, they come together to give you an image. And that is really how any display device works, right? It works off of this. Now, the bit depth that you see, the reason why on your computer, if you just click on any arbitrary picture on your computer and look in your properties, it says it has a bit depth of 24, right? However, if I, for example, looked on this black and white image here, I'm gonna go to properties. So this one here is for the black and white image. It says that it has a bit depth of 8. So anybody can tell me why the bit depth of a black and white image is 8? And the bit depth of, so this one here over here is 8. And the bit depth of a colored image is 24. Can anybody tell me why?
Because of how many colors are being used in each pixel.
Right. And every channel, every red, blue, and green channel has a combination of 256 shades. So remember, 256 equals 8-bit. And in a colored image, you have 256 red, 256 blue, 256 green. That is 8 plus 8 plus 8. That's 24. So every image that you have on your computer that I'm seeing here is what you call a 24-bit image, because it's a combination of red, green, and blue. So this is where the bit thing comes in. And when you go in Photoshop, I don't know if some of you might have noticed, under mode, you have different types of images. You have grayscale, you have 8-bit image, you have a 16-bit image, and you have a 32-bit image. So we know the way that Photoshop does it, it's saying 8 bits per channel. So this simply means that if it is a colored image has 3 channels: red, green, and blue. And each of them are 8-bit because you have 256 shades of each. So this is what that means. So I want to throw out another question to you guys. I do that time. Okay, cool. What if an image, what about a PNG image? So remember that image, let me go back here. Remember that image of the dude that's drinking the coffee, right? If I right click on that image and I go to properties, this is saying that it's oh, right. This is saying that it has a 32-bit depth, not 24. So remember, with 24, you have red, green, and blue. Each of them are 8 bits. So 8 bits of red, 8 bits of blue, 8 bits of green. This one say it have 32. And this is a PNG image. And this is why, the reason I'm telling you this is why PNG images are going to be always larger than a JPEG image of the same image. The reason for that is that a PNG image has a 4th channel. So for example, a PNG image has red, green, and blue, and then it has another one that they call alpha. Can anybody guess what is this alpha channel used for? It's a PNG image. So what do you think this alpha channel is used for? Anybody? Anybody remember what's the superpower of a PNG image?
To have an invisible background.
Right, it has the ability to have a transparent layer. So that, exactly, Catherine, so that 4th channel is for transparency. Right. So for every PNG image, it stores red, green, and blue, and transparency. So it just means that if you have a JPEG, if you have a PNG image that's not transparent, then your transparency on that is going to be. Remember, this is per pixel, you know. So every single pixel needs a value for green. How much green is in this pixel? How much red is in this pixel? How much blue is in this pixel? And the 4th one, how much transparency is in this pixel? So a PNG image has to do that for every single pixel. So for example, if I open this in Photoshop, which is, let me go, let me open our dude here drinking. Right. So when I open this image in Photoshop, you can clearly see that the transparent section of the image is here. But if I zoom all the way to where the pixels start to meet the transparency, and for example, I click on this pixel here. Oops. Let's say that I clicked on this pixel. Come on, thing. Close this. Bring it back. Right. If I clicked on, say, this pixel here, this pixel and this pixel, it has a certain amount of red, green, and blue, but it also has a certain amount of transparency. And you can see getting that transparency value is increasing until it's totally gone. Right? So that's all that's happening with a PNG image, right? So see, I told you this would get a little bit in the weeds of what's going on with an image. All right, now I want to show you this last example. I want to show you a 48-bit image and present to you like what is the superpower of an image that is 48-bit? Because remember, JPEGs are all 8-bit, right? It can only store red, green, blue, and that's it, right? PNGs are 32-bit because it stores red, green, blue, and an alpha channel. So you have some, I'm giving an example of a special type of image now. So you have what's called a 48-bit image, and these images are usually referred to as a HDR image. And most of you might not come into contact with it yet. Maybe when you guys do a little bit of rendering, you might come into contact with it. But I want to show you two images. I'm going to show you in Photoshop because Photoshop is one of the only applications that can open an HDR image. So first I'm going to open a JPEG version. So this is a JPEG image here. And same thing as usual, it is a 24-bit image because it has red, green, and blue. And each one of those red, green, and blue has 256 possible shades for red, 256 possible shades for green, and 256 for blue. Now I'm going to open this one here, and this is a HDR image that has 48-bit. So what does this mean? It has how much levels does it have again? 16, right? So it has if I do my math right, here we go. Oops. Right, so it has 16-bit, which means that it has approximately 65,000 possible shades of red, 65,000 possible shades of blue, and 65,000 possible shades of green. So remember, a regular JPEG image have 256. This HDR image have 60-odd thousand. So, Shamario, what do you think? Do you think you will see any differences between these two images? Because one is storing way more color. Like, think you guys ever shade those boxes of shades? You did that with in first year? Are you gonna do that again? Anybody?
Yeah, we did so.
Right. And you have a box, and I think you have 8 shades. I don't know how much you have. And you have to every time you shade one, you have to go lower and lower and lower. So in the computer, it has 256, and every time it shades one, it go, closer to black or closer to red or whatever. So for a HDR image, it has 65,000 of those boxes, which is kind of crazy. But the interesting thing about the HDR image is that if I show it to you here in Photoshop, on the left here, you have a 16-bit image. That's here, right? Sorry, 48-bit. So it has, every channel has 65,000. And here we have the regular old JPEG here, where every channel, let me close these other ones, where every channel, that's this one. So let me put it left and right so you can kind of see it. All right, anybody notice any difference between them? Kind of zoom in to a spot, like this tree right here. Can you guys tell which one is which? Which one has more shades of color?
Okay, the one on the right.
Well, if you can look on this image and determine it, then you are a cyborg. You're not real Shamario. You're like half machine, because I certainly can't tell. Or is it that you just look on the label of the picture?
On the right hand, a little bit more detailed. I don't know, it's probably so I'm seeing it, sir, but I can see like a little fine details to an extent.
Okay, well, fair enough, because they do have some differences, but generally they look like the same image. Like, you would not know. I mean, one of them is like 3 megabytes and the other one is like 100 megabytes. So one of them has, so if I should add up all of the colors, if I should add up 256 shades of red plus 256 shades of blue plus 256 shades of green, and I add all that together, then I am gonna get, come on, Here we go. I'm gonna get, oops, where am I? Here. I'm gonna get 16 million colors, right? 16 million possible colors when you add up all of the shades together. Now, I don't even want to call the figure that I would get when I add this image together. It's like trillions of possible colors. But yet still, when you look in Photoshop, it look all the same. Where's Photoshop? Photoshop is here, right? Now, the big difference between this is that the image that have more shades can store what you call more information. And the best example I can show you of that is, let's say, suppose let me just use where is it? My adjustment layer, right? Let me use my adjustment layer. So I'm going to adjust the exposure. It's kind of like the brightness. So if I adjust the exposure of the image on the left, so that's my JPEG image, I can make the image on the left, come on here, brighter. So this is it going, sorry, no, not this one. Hold on, undo. The image on the right is the JPEG, right? So I'm gonna adjust the exposure of it, not the brightness. Come on, go back, undo. Exposure, right. And you see, this is the image getting brighter and dull. Brighter and dull. But on the image on the left, when I increase the exposure, what you notice is happening. So let me make the image dull here. And then I'm going to make the image on the right dull the same amount. Anybody can explain what's happening? But you know, in your own words, not with any technical jargon. What do you think is happening?
Could you repeat?
I'm changing the brightness of two different images. The image on the left is a HDR image that has 48-bit color, right? And the image on the right is your regular JPEG image that's on your computer that is 24-bit color. So I turned the exposure of both of them to iron. When the exposure is normal, both of them, they look pretty similar. Oops. There we go. This is when the exposure is reset to 0. Let me kind of zoom out of this. They look pretty similar. They look the same basically. But when I start to mess with the exposure of the JPEG, so let's say I want to make it darker, and then I mess with the exposure of the one that's the HDR image and I make it darker by the same amount, what you notice happening between these two?
So, would it be safe to say you're tweaking the alpha element?
No, because this image, this type of image doesn't have an alpha channel. It only has 3, red, green, and blue, no alpha. The only difference is that your regular JPEG image that's on your computer, you can only choose between 256 shades. Whereas the HDR image that I'm showing you here, I can choose between 65,000 shades. That's the only difference.
There's a wider range that you can adjust it to.
Exactly. I like to use the word range. That's why I'm giving you full marks on that answer. Because range is key. At the end of the day, your eyes can only see no more than 256 colors. This is why when I reset the image to the default, both of them. So that is the default and this is the default. In your eyeballs, they look the same way. But what's happening under the hood is that the image on the left, the one that has 65 million colors, it has more what you call information. but your eyes don't see it. Your eyes can only see, the human eye can only see 16 million colors, right? 16 million colors, when you work it out backwards, you get roughly the same as a computer, meaning 256 shades of red, green, and blue, or if you're talking about cyan, magenta, same thing. Your eyes can only detect around 256 shades. And this is why when you look on these two images, the one that has more than 256 shades, you don't see the difference because your eyes can only see a certain range of color, right? Now, you might be saying, so, okay, fine, but for the most part, JPEG images are fine. If I need a little bit more, I just want to need a PNG image, which can give me transparency. Why the heck would I need to have an image that has more than 256 shades, meaning more than 24-bit? Why would I need an image that's more than 24-bit? Because certainly your cell phone can't open an image that's more than 24-bit. And your TV can't even display that either. Right? And the big reason why I'm telling you guys this information is because you guys are in the field that edits and manipulate digital images. You guys are going to be rendering images from programs, then you're going to change the background and change the sky. You're going to put somebody standing on the balcony waving. You're going to edit the color. You are going to manipulate images, because that's what we do here in architecture. And the more information you have to work with is the more manipulation you can do to the image. So what do I mean by that? Let's say that this image on the right, you went out on a sunny day and you took a picture. And you're like, oh crap, the sky is too bright. Okay, wait, let me try and reduce the exposure on this image. The whole image is going to get dark because the information you have to work with is limited. You only have 256 possible shades. But the image on the right, you have a greater range. Like you can actually turn down and still get detail on this image. You're not losing any image. So what does that mean for you? That means that if you were photoshopping this, if you were trying to change the background of, let's say you have a building and you want to change the sky. If you were working with a high bit image like this, you can get your sky being really bright or really dark. You don't have to go and search for multiple skies. So the point I'm getting to is that the higher the bit, the more editability an image is, right? And most of the images you get from the internet, they're going to be 8-bit. But you are going to be working with the ability to generate images that are more than 8-bit, meaning it have more than 256 shades. When you guys use your rendering program and you render, you're going to see, oh, do I want to save this image as a JPEG? Or do I want to save it as a PNG? Or do I want to save it as a HDR? You're going to see these options come up. And you're going to be like, oh, I know what a HDR image is. It's that image that has more shades of color, which means I can manipulate that image more. Right? So this is why when you're editing, not when you're distributing, when you're editing, you want to work with source images. You want to work with more shades of color. But when you're sending the image out now to your friends in WhatsApp, or you want to post it somewhere on Instagram, or you want to send it to the printers to be printed, usually you send a JPEG, because a JPEG is very flexible. It only have 8-bit color. But that's fine, because remember, the human eyes can only see 8 anyway. So you don't need to be sending a HDR image to the printer. You don't need to be sending a HDR image to WhatsApp or to Instagram, because at the end of the day, your eyes can only see a certain amount of color. But when you are editing that image before you send it to Instagram or those places, you want to be working with the image that has more information, So you cut off the head here, you cut the background, you change the sky, all of those manipulations you're doing in Photoshop, you want to do them and work with images, if possible, at the highest possible bit depth. And then when you're sending it, you send it out as a lower one. You guys following what I'm saying? Guys? Have I lost you?
Sure. I heard what you said in the last part about saving it as a
Well, a lot of this, you see, that's the thing about theory. I can talk all I want to talk, but the truth of it really comes out when you're in that situation, right? So this is good background image to have, but you're not necessarily going to have your aha moment yet until one of these days you're editing something and it's like, oh, that's what Sir did mean when him tell about it. And you will have your aha moment. But the important thing is that I'm planting the seed from now. You guys should have an idea of what color depth is, because it affects your image types. You're going to be interacting with multiple image types. Some of them have higher depth, some have lower depth, some of them have transparency, some of them can store vector. You have all of these options, so you have to know what they're for and how they're used, right? Right. So this is what I was saying, that your eyes can only see 256 shades anyway. Right? As a matter of fact, most computers and displays, like the latest iPhone that you can buy or the latest iPad that has the most expensive screen, can still only show not more than 10-bit color anyway. You get me? So most of those types of images that have all of this color information, they're good for editing, but they're not good to distribute. You get what I'm saying? So that is, in Photoshop, that is what these options are for. I don't know if you've ever messed with these options before, but like if I go here and I go image and I go mode, it says that this is saying that this image actually has more than 16 bits per channel. It actually has 32 bits per channel, which is just like a crazy amount of colors. Whereas the regular JPEG image here, if you go in Photoshop and it says here, it has 8 bits per channel. So that is what this whole bit thing means, right? The long and short of it is that if I'm editing images and I have the ability to work with a 16-bit image, work with the 16-bit image. Work with the higher bit, but don't distribute the higher bit image. It's pointless anyway, because you're not going to see it. All right, so that is just a little bit on the mystery surrounding what this whole bit depth thing is. It's just telling you the amount of possible colors. So now we're going to move into the exercise, and we're going to continue this conversation with color, because we still have some more topics to talk about, but that is it for theory for now. Jump into our exercise 4. All right. I think some persons had some challenges with Illustrator, but I suspect that those of you that submitted the work, you guys have solved those challenges. Anybody here still having challenges with Illustrator?
With InDesign.
Okay, right, 'cause we're going InDesign next. We're going InDesign next. and that would be next week, Saturday. All right, so let's jump into exercise 4, one of the most important exercises that you will do.
And if we head on over to the website and we look under exercise 4, we can see here that exercise 4 is about architectural presentations using Illustrator, right? So we're going to look on how do we do architectural presentations using Illustrator, right? And if you look at the examples on the handout, you can see where this is a standard architectural drawing, and it perhaps has a black background because perhaps most times we do architectural drawings, they are in AutoCAD and the background is usually black. So that's what this is representing here. And we want to look how to convert this into this. So if you look at your exercise files that we have available, you will see a bunch of images, mostly PDFs, of all kinds of architectural assets. Now what you'll be looking for, you're going to be needing a DWG file, right? And if I open this DWG file here, you will see that this is what the file looks like in AutoCAD. And I can, in the AutoCAD application, you might realize that there are tools that are similar to Illustrator. However, they're more geared towards architects and engineers.
No, you don't need to have AutoCAD for this exercise. I'm just showing you what it looks like when you open it. All right, so you don't need AutoCAD, you just need Illustrator. All right, guys.
But notice that, like Illustrator, I can clearly see these lines here. I can select a line, I can move it around, you know, but notice how there is no precision because there is no measurements and dimensions, and these are things that we're all familiar with architectural drawings. So the idea is we want to not show the drawing as construction drawings, but rather to use this same method used to create construction drawings as working drawings. So what you'll notice is when you save an AutoCAD file, it saves as a DWG file, and that DWG file is able to be read in Illustrator. All right, so therefore we're going to open Illustrator now, and we're going to go to open, and we're going to browse for the location of this DWG file that we see here. Here we go, and I'm going to open this like that. Now your Illustrator should bring up this option here to read the DWG file, and you're going to leave it on the default, which should be scale to fit artboard. We're going to choose OK. Ignore any messages and just choose OK to open. Now once the file is open, this is what you should have. Now notice when you hover over these lines, the same lines that you noticed coming from AutoCAD is now in Illustrator. Now you might notice that these lines are a bit thick though, and that's just because the way how Illustrator has interpreted the line weight, right? Okay, now also notice the elevations and notice how all of these are individual lines, right? And this is because Illustrator is able to read the vector information from that DWG file. Okay, so now what we're going to do before we do anything else is we need to fix these line weights. Now if you remember from the previous class, we do have the stroke panel which allows us to manipulate individual lines. Now the first thing we want to do is we want to change all these lines to black. So we're going to select everything. And notice when we select all the lines in our drawing, if we take a look at what this is saying here, it is not able to tell us what stroke and what fill we have selected, right? Notice that there. However, if I selected, let's zoom in here, if I selected one line, like maybe this cyan line here, it's able to tell me that I have a cyan line selected. However, if I select multiple lines, it's going to give me a question mark, and that is because it has multiple lines selected and it's not able to display multiple lines here. Now the first thing we're going to do before we change all these lines to one color is we need to get ourselves organized. Now if you look on your layers tab, notice that you have some pre-made layers. And funny thing, these layers were actually interpreted from the AutoCAD application. If I go over to AutoCAD application and I look on my layers, notice that these layers here, the short for annotate, appliances, details, dimensions, and now these layers are actually now interpreted with Illustrator. So that this tells us that Illustrator is able to read DWG files and to translate the information from it into Illustrator. Now the first thing we want to do is get a little bit more organized with our text, and notice that the text has also been interpreted. We can use the text tool and be able to highlight this text, and we can modify it. However, what we want to do is to put all text objects on one layer. Notice we don't have a layer for text objects here. Now in order to do that, we could manually select each object here and then create a new layer to put them on. And to do that, well, let's do one first. So I'm going to select this balcony thing here, and I'm going to create a new layer, and I'm going to call this new layer text. Now of course, if I wanted to put this on this layer, I could search for it here in this list and drag it to that new layer, but that might be a little bit ergonomically difficult. So what I suggest you do is to click on the word on the layer, right click on the object that you want to go to that layer, and then you're going to go to arrange and send to current layer, and the current layer you have selected is text. So when you do that, it will go over to that layer, and surely enough, if I turn it on and off, you will see that is now there. Now we have many other text to select here, but rather than individually selecting them, we also have text over here. Rather than individually selecting them, what I want you to do is to go to select object, and then say all text objects. So
all right guys, so is anybody trying to follow along with how to organize the drawing?
Yes, sir. A bit.
Right. Right. So basically what we're trying to do is to put everything onto its own layer. And come on, let's take this out a while. Right, so if I go to the layers tab here, right, this is my layers here. So these are the layers that you might notice that your project comes with. And I'm basically just trying to create a layer called text to put them on. But I don't want to individually like say go to layer. So that trick that I showed you is one that you're going to use a lot of the times. I just dock this down here, which is where you can just go to select object and just say select all text objects, which is pretty cool. So it will go through your entire Illustrator file, and anything that is a text, it will select it for you, which is pretty cool.
So that's under select object, and then you go to all text objects, and once you do that, it's going to automatically select all text objects in the drawing. When it does that, we can now put everything over to the text layer here. Now, funny thing, an important thing to notice, when I right click and I say, okay, now I want to go to arrange and send to current layer, you might notice send to current layer is currently grayed out, and you might be wondering, why is that? Now, the reason for that is that there is one text object that is already on the text layer. So, you know, Illustrator is saying that, well, you can't send something on a layer to itself. So what you want to do is to deselect this singular text that we already had placed on the text layer. So again, when you select all the text, you want to deselect the one that we already placed on the text layer, and you do that by holding Shift and clicking on the text there. All the other text is still selected, and now when you highlight the text layer and then you right click on any one of the text, you should see now send to current layer. Now once you do that, now you'll be confident that all the text in the drawing is now on one layer. We can actually turn that off or on. So that is great. So now that we have the text organized, next we want to get organized with our line weights, right? We definitely want the lines to be in the same color, and we want all the line weights to be a reasonable width. Most of these widths are quite thick and some are thin. So what we're going to do first is we're going to select everything here, and we're going to go to stroke. So ensure that you have highlighted the stroke here, and this is a key point that I want us to know. When you notice that the stroke has the question mark now, that is telling us that we have a multitude of strokes that's currently selected. Now when you do this, you want to ensure that your text layer is off, because we don't want to be adding a stroke to our text layer. All right, so make sure that that layer is off. So when you select everything on all the layers, when you select all the objects on your artboard, you're going to now go to color, and then what you're going to do is recolor all the strokes with black, and you can see that the black button that's right here. Now you need to ensure that you have the stroke that's currently activated on top, right? Because you're applying black to all strokes. Now once you do that, there you go, and you deselect, now everything will currently be black. All right, so if I look around here, you will see that all these drawings are black. Now of course we have an issue. The line weight is still a major issue. So what we want to do is make all the line weight one singular line weight, and we're going to do the same thing again. We're going to select all the line work here, and this time we're going to head over to our stroke panel, and in our stroke panel we can adjust the line weight right there. So we want to put our line weight to perhaps, let's try 0.25, right, and that is looking a little bit more reasonable perhaps. As a matter of fact, that may be a bit too thick, so let's select everything and let's go to 0.2. All right, let's try 0.5. There we go. Yeah, definitely too thick, so we want to use a stroke of 0.15. Now this is a bit more workable. You can see that we can see all the window frames here. We can pick up all of these details here, and we do have some unwanted lines like this line here that has now reared its ugly head. Now before we go into cleaning up those lines, we need to now turn on our text layer. So we're going to make sure that our text layer is on, And you can see that our text layer still has the color, that is the blue applied to it. So let us also change that to black. So to do that, we're going to select the little round symbol here, and that will select all text. Now for text, we don't want to change the stroke. Instead, we want to change the fill color of the text, right? So you're going to ensure that you need to ensure that your stroke, your fill is highlighted here. And notice you also get a question mark here because it's selecting multiple different fills. So we're going to change all of those fills to one color again. So we're going to select the black color here, here or here, anyone. All right, great. So now if we should look around on our text layer, we'll see that it is now black. All right, so we are getting somewhere. So what we want to do now is kind of position this in place. So we want to have two artboards. One artboard will be for the elevation and another artboard will be for the plan. So to do that, we're going to go to the artboard tool that's located right here. And once we go into artboard mode, notice that the artboard now becomes highlighted. We can see the name of the artboard for those who have, I think it's 2018 and up. And we can also see the name of the artboard up here. We can also see the size of the artboard, right? And if you remember how Illustrator works, whatever we have selected, we're getting the properties for it on our bar up top. All right, so what we want to do now is we want to create another artboard. So we want to click the plus button that's right here, and you will see another artboard will be created. Now when that artboard is created, what we want to do is select our plan and we want to move this over. Now when you're moving
Yeah, you say you're not seeing the artboard tool, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We would have to go to be able to unlock it.
Right. So the new version of Illustrator, they try to minimize the tools, I guess, so it doesn't clog up your interface, but at the same time, it's a little bit annoying. So the artboard tool is well, mine is showing. Let's see. Yeah, okay. If yours isn't showing, you need to go to the three dots down here. And when you go to the three dots, you will see every single tool that's available to you in Illustrator. So you would go to well, in my case, my artboard is, hold on, right, so it would be under select up here. So, and then what you can do with these, like you can actually drag these over and add them to your tool palettes. So if I wanted my pencil tool to be in my tool palette, I would just drag it, and now I have my pencil tool. So if your artboard, are you seeing? Are you finding the artboard?
Yes, I see it.
All right, great, lovely. All right, let us proceed.
Illustrator content, you want to grab the actual line. If you try to grab in the middle, you're not going to be pulling anything. You have to hold on to an actual line content because this drawing has no fill. So we're going to grab that and we're going to put it roughly in the center of the page. And we're going to do the same thing for the elevation. We're going to put it roughly in the center of the page here. Then we're going to use our artboard tool again. And what we want to do is we want to name our artboard. So we want to name this artboard elevation. And we want to name this artboard or plan, floor plan. Great, so now we are a bit more organized in how we're going to do our coloring. Now the first thing we want to do is try to get our elevations to look a bit more vibrant. So what we're going to do now is to start to clean up the elevations, right? So we're gonna, so for example, this line that's here, we're gonna remove that line there. And of course, we can use our direct selection tool, which allows us to select individual lines. There we go. So we're going to remove that, and we basically want to clean up the drawing, so we want to remove that line there, this one, and these are just hidden lines that came over as a result of importing a DWG file. All right, great. All right, so once our line work is all cleaned up, at this point, it would be a good idea to save your work. So I'm going to save my work as exercise 4. And I'm going to make sure I'm saving it as an Illustrator file. And Illustrator will usually give this option. And when it gives this option, what it is saying is, well, you just choose your version of Illustrator. And this option here, create a PDF compatible file. This is basically enabling the option for the Illustrator file to be opened directly in a PDF application. So we're going to make sure those two options are on, and we're going to choose OK. All right, now Illustrator 2020 has a file recovery option. I believe it saves every 5 to 10 minutes. So if you lose your work, you should be able to get it back. However, we don't want to depend on that. So we want to save as often as we can. All right, so now that we have this selected here, now that we have our plans a bit more organized, let us manipulate some of our line work. So we know that we want perhaps this line being the ground line to be a bit brighter, right? So we have more than one options. What we could do is select all the lines along this edge here and make it thicker. But to make life a bit easier, it would be much easier to trace on top of this line with a much thicker line representing our floor plan. Now, when you're tracing lines on top of lines in Illustrator, things get a little tricky. And I'll show you why if I select the pen tool here, and let's say I wanted to draw a line over this line here. Once I hover over this point here with the pen tool, it is going to want to add the line here and merge it with this line, and that's not what you might want to happen. So in order to be able to trace and to enhance some of our line work, we need to get a little bit organized with our layers so that we can control how we do that. So first thing we want to do is let us select our elevation. Well, let's turn off the text layer. There we go. We're going to select all of our elevation, and we're going to put that on a new layer, and we're going to call that elevation. So we're going to create a new layer, and our new layer is located here. New layer button. And when it created the new layer, we want to call this elevation drawing. Great. So now we need to highlight the layer, right click, and say move to new layer. So now we can turn the elevation on or off, depending. I think I might have made an error there. Hold on. There we go. There we go. Right. So now we can turn the layer on or off as we please. Now, one of the reasons for doing this is we actually want to lock this layer. So I'm going to lock the elevation drawing layer, and I'm going to use my pen tool now. Let's create a new layer, and I'll call it updated line work. There we go. Call it updated line work. Now this layer we want to be on top of the elevation drawing layer, and what we're going to do on this updated line work layer is to kind of fix up some of our line work so that our drawing reads a bit more nicer. So I'm going to get my pen tool, And I'm going to make sure that the elevation layer is locked. All right, that's important because when we draw on our updated line layer, we don't want it to be merging or messing with that elevation drawing layer. So I'm just gonna trace this over here, and what I'm doing is just tracing over the lines. Now Illustrator has the ability to snap to anchors, but I mean we're gonna make this line really thick, so if it doesn't 100% snap, it should be fine. There we go. Press escape. I'm going to use my selection tool so I can see that that is the line that I've drawn. And then what I'm going to do is now I'm going to make this line thicker. So I'm going to go to my stroke tool and I'm going to perhaps make this line about 0.5, probably 0.8. Actually, let me fix up my stroke and fill here. So I want to ensure that I'm on my stroke. All right, you need to make sure that so your stroke is highlighted, and I want to make the stroke 0.8. Maybe let's try making it 1. 1 is actually, yeah, there we go. So we have a nice strong baseline there, as you can see. All right. I might have left off a section here, so I'm going to just use my pen tool and continue this line out there like that. There we go. All right. Now we can use this method to kind of enhance other lines, but pretty much this is good enough. All right.
What's up?
On my elevation, I have some really dark lines that don't make any sense. And I would have made all of my lines really thin, and they just appeared just now.
Because you probably filled it, maybe by accident.
The fill is empty, that's the thing. It's specifically in where the roof plane and the cobblestone, that kind of area just has sharp geometric lines there. With on the roof, it's outlining the roof and just triangles for the cobblestone wall.
Right. So did you get rid of these lines in here? So hold on, let me get where you at. So for this part here, I'm gonna say black, and I'm going to make my stroke like 5. Right. So did you get rid of these lines here? So in order to get right, so you need to well, to get rid of it, you want to use your direct selection tool and just click on it and delete it like that.
Okay.
Because I think that's what is causing it to do that. Yeah. And this one here, so there's another one here. But make sure you're on the direct selection tool, which is this one, the white arrow.
All right, yeah. It's okay. It's gone now. Thank you so much.
Yeah, man, no problem.
Now, what we're gonna do is use a feature to color our drawing here. Now, this feature called Live Paint Bucket is a feature that's very, I would say, underappreciated in Illustrator. It's very useful for us, but yet a lot of persons perhaps forget about this tool, even advanced Illustrator users, right? So what the Live Paint tool is, it uses the ability to, it basically gives us the ability to fill, to use a paint bucket to fill certain enclosed areas, right? And to give that, if we should look at a little example over here, if I have a bunch of squares, and you can do this example here, you can try this example for yourself. Now obviously I have different squares here, and these are all different shapes. However, where they intersect, like here and here, they form new shapes. However, we are unable to easily fill in this intersected shape, and this is what the live paint bucket allows us to do, because currently Illustrator, if we should just allow these shapes to intersect, there's no way to only fill in the areas that are intersecting. Now the live paint bucket is located as a sub tool here under the shape builder tool. So if we click and hold, we should be able to hover over to live paint bucket, and now we're using the live paint bucket tool.
In addition to that, you can also use a shortcut K to switch to the live paint tool. All right, guys, this is one of those tools for life, so you're going to want to remember this one, especially for architecture.
Now, very carefully, how the live paint bucket tool works, if you try to use the paint bucket tool now, it's basically not going to work. What you have to do is use your direct selection tool first. So step one, you use your selection tool rather. Select all of the elements that you want to be a part of the live paint group. Then you go to your live paint bucket, and notice you get this message that says click to make a live paint group. Now once you click this, notice that you can now hover over these different areas, and what happens now, if I use my color picker and just pick a color, I am now able to fill in these individual areas even though there are individual shapes. So you can do this little test here to kind of get a feel of how the live paint group works. Essentially what it did, it created a group. So this is actually a special group here. I can move it around. However, I can still go inside the group. So to go inside this group, I can double click. And now I'm inside this group, and I'm still able to move these shapes around. And yet it will keep the colors that were assigned to the intersecting areas. And that is a major cool feature. And we can really utilize that a lot, especially in architecture, to help color our buildings. All right, so now that we have that out of the way, there is one more concept that we need to understand in order to, before we start to color our shape. Now, I want to explain a little bit about color, because yes, we can turn this into a live paint group and we're now able to color these elements here, but how do we know what color to use, right? So color is a major it is a major skill. Choosing the right color is a major skill that we eventually develop in this design field. And Illustrator actually has the tools to help us be better color pickers. In other words, better designers. Now, what I'm about to show you here is actually a tip that has existed in Illustrator, I think, since its inception. And it's also a little secret that if you're trying to determine what colors go well together, Illustrator has the ability to assist you, to help you to do that. So if we as designers were faced with this problem where we're trying to decide what color should we paint this building in, if you think about it, it's the same kind of question we might ask ourselves: what color shirt should I wear with these shoes? Or what color furniture should I get? What color bedspread should I get to match this curtain? So there are many design problems that exist that is centered around color selection. And what happened, Illustrator has, I call it the dynamic trio of tools that can help us to select the correct color without even breaking a sweat. Now, to use this skill, so these three tools or rather 3 panels, is the color panel. The next one is the swatches panel. And the last one is the color guide panel. So with these 3 panels, you can passively always select the correct color in whatever application you're using color. It could be with architecture, with fashion, with fabric, doesn't really matter. The way how these tools work, it works using the color theory, and your selections, if driven by color theory, will automatically always work. Okay, so in order to let this work, and I'll show you an example here, the first thing that you need to do is decide, and let's put these 3 panels over here, as we're going to be using 3 of them to help with this. We're going to minimize the other panels here, and we're going to just attach these 3 panels together here. All right, there we go. So we're going to put these panels over here. Okay, so now we have our icons organized. Let's put this layer 1 over here. Right, now we have our icons organized. Now the first thing we need to do is, if we wanted to decide what color to paint this building and we had no idea what color we want to select, we could always start with a theme. Now to do that, you're going to choose the library icon, which is here. It is a sub icon under the swatches menu. So when we select that, this is where you select a theme. So let's say you wanted to use colors that are based in nature. Well, you could go in the nature category, and what subcategory? How about seasons? Well, what you notice that Illustrator does, it gives you a library of these colors that would be considered under the seasons category. And right away, you have a range of colors to pick from. And within each row are colors that are pretty much made to go together. So you could just basically select one row here and color your building that color. Now, the next step that we would use, let's say that we might like one color out of this set here, but maybe we don't like the other colors in the row. Well, so I'm gonna pick let's choose a kind of burnt orange color, maybe earthy burnt orange. Maybe that's too dark, maybe that one. So let's say that this is the color that I like here. Now, notice when I select that color, it also shows up on my swatches here. And it is also highlighted on my color guide here. And it tells us here on my color panel what range of cyan, magenta, yellow, and key black was used to create this color. So right away, I have a lot of information on this one color that I have selected. Now, because of these tools, I can now get the perfect color that I want. So the next step would be to use my color panel here, and I'm going to go into my color my panel options, and I'm going to change it to HSB, hue, saturation, and brightness. And what this is saying, this is telling me the amount of hue, the amount of saturation, and the amount of brightness that was used to get this color here, which is a color that I selected over here, which was based on a theme that was seasons. So you can kind of see how the seasons kind of led me down this path, the seasons theme. Now, if I don't quite like this particular color, I can always tweak the saturation or the brightness to get the exact tone that I like. However, notice that I started from this tone here and I started from this theme here, but I don't have to pick this particular color. I can use my color panel here to just slightly give me the exact feel that I wanted. So let me go, let's say that I wanted this kind of a very pastel-y kind of brown. There. Now once I have this color that I've now configured using the color panel, I can now save it to my swatches here. And how I save it? Well, all I need to do is to drag it into my swatches panel. So I just click this color and drag it here. So now I have saved the color. Now I have saved this color here. And you could repeat this process a number of times to save whatever color you might like. So now that you've selected a color that you definitely want to be in this building, how do I know what colors complement this color that I've selected here? Well, this is where the color guide comes in. Now, if you notice on the color guide, it always displays the color that you have currently selected. Then right beside it, it shows you a list of colors that go well together based on color theory. So what do I mean by that? Well, if we click on this down arrow here, notice on the left side of this is the color that you've selected, and on the right are the matching colors based on the color theory. And that color theory is used to drive these selections. So let's say that you want to use the triad color theory here. Well, using the triad color theory, these are the colors that go well with the color that I have selected. Now I can say, oh, I really like this green, so I'm going to select it and drag it out here. I like this purple, I'm going to drag it out here. And I like this dark brown here, I'm going to drag it out here. So right away, just by configuring one color, I was able to select multiple colors that matches the one color that I've selected. And I didn't even have to necessarily memorize my color theory. Illustrator did that for me. Alright, so now that I have my colors that I like, my next step would be to now use the live paint bucket to now color my elevation. Now in order to do this, first, if you remember the steps, I'm gonna select the layer, or I currently have it locked. So I need to, now that I've finished using these swatches, I can close up this window here. I don't need this window anymore. And let's maximize this window here. There we go. So if I go to my elevation drawing, I'm going to unlock that layer, select the elevation drawing, and then I'm going to use my live paint bucket tool, which is that. And remember, it is a sub tool under the shape builder tool if you don't see. And I'm going to click once. Now remember this, once I click, it's going to say make a live paint group. I just need to click once. Now once I do that, this is now a single group. If I use my direct selection tool and click, the entire thing now acts as one group. However, now I'm able to use my live paint tool and I can now fill in the different sections here. So remember that I had used my swatches and I had selected the color that I liked. So I'm going to color my main wall this color. Now, interestingly enough, this wall here is really at an angle. So ideally, I would want this to be a darker shade to signify that this is slant. Now to do that, I can simply just use my color guide, and I just need to choose a darker tone based on this color I have selected here. There we go. Maybe that's too dark. Let me go up another notch. Actually, that is the same color. Yep, this is the next notch down, so that would be the color there. There we go. And I can start to use from my swatches some of these colors that I have selected here. So I kind of have this darker color here I'm going to use for the rim. And let's try this in, yeah, so let's try this over here in this color here, and like that. All right, great. Now, in order to do the roof, let's say that I want to make the roof a kind of burgundy color, right? Now you could do the same process again, and in the swatches panel you could use your library and look for a color here that you want to use. Let's look on the earth tone. Here we go. So I could find a nice earth tone color I want to use for the roof. Maybe this kind of orange here. And once I've selected it, I can drag it and add it to my library, to my swatches there. And now I'm able to click and color the roof. Now you might notice that you have to be clicking a while, clicking a lot here. But what you can do is click and hold. And when you click and hold, it will actually do a multiple selection so that you don't have to click a lot of times. There we go. Oops, I think I have selected, so I did an undo there. There we go. And I could do the same here. So it almost acts like a brush when I click and hold. Now to make this a little nicer, what I could do is I can use my color guide tool and choose, if you can see, this is my color here. So this color matches this color. In my color guide is the center. You can see it with a little arrow there, and going this way would be going lighter and going this way would be going darker. So let's go one shade up and then I will color again. So you notice I can get like a kind of mixed shingle look there. So you realize the color guide can be used to kind of step up or step down your color selections. So you can kind of move the mouse a little quickly to give it a kind of a random feel. Now let's say that I accidentally colored my fascia board here with the same color as the roof. I mean, because I had the swatches saved, I can just go back to my swatches here, select back my brown color, I think it was that one, and voila. All right, let's continue with the roof. All right, so once you have that all done, next we perhaps need to do the windows. So we could use the same library feature. This time we could choose something like perhaps something like skies on the gradients. Maybe choose something like that, maybe. There we go. Oops, we don't want to color the frames in that color. Maybe not, so maybe a flat color would work a bit better. So let's go back to the library and we could select something under let's go nature and let's try beach. And on the beach, yep, we do have some kind of beachy blue colors. So let's try this now. And this will give us a kind of flat color, which, oops, let's undo, which may work. You know, it's going to be up to your preference to choose what color you would want here. There we go. Okay, now for the stone wall, perhaps we could, under the same beach color, we could pick some tones here, and then we could use a different tone for the backdrop. So that would kind of give a interesting mix for our stones, so that it has this kind of interesting color. You can maybe try grays or maybe even some gradients to let it look a bit diverse. There we go. Now remember, all of these lines are actually coming from AutoCAD, but we're able to repurpose them more creatively when it comes into Illustrator. So that is quite awesome. Okay, now next, what we would want to do is perhaps get some entourage in this image. And if you look in your working folder, remember these images here, we actually have some vehicles in elevation. So for example, this car here, I can download it. And if I open it up, that's what it looks like. And I can copy this PNG here, and I can paste it in my drawing here. Let's resize it. And you want to hold shift so you keep the ratio. Oh, actually, you're not going to get the transparent background, so let us find where it is and drag it into our scene here. Right, so now it comes in with the transparency. Rather than using the copy, just find where you downloaded it and copy it in. Oops, remember to hold shift so that it remains. And you want to get your scale correctly. I think it's about that. So as you can see, there are many other assets in this folder, including persons in elevations, trees. So for example, you could grab this tree here, as well as you can get trees from the internet. And I can drag that in, and I can resize that there and perhaps drop there. And of course, if I wanted to put it behind, I can actually create a layer called tree and place it on that layer. So that way I can choose to put it behind or in front of my drawing. So with that said, what I want you to do is to populate this drawing to now let it look a bit more architecturally rich.
All right, guys. So that is pretty much it for what we're going to do for the elevations. There's going to be people and some other assets that we need to add. But basically, you're going to repeat this for the site plan, for the floor plan as well. All right, so one of the main things that we learned here is that using the color swatches. And please guys, I don't want to see any purple or pink, shocking color pink houses, right guys? Just use the color switcher in a reasonable way to help you to choose the colors for that. All right, guys? Are you with me?
Yes, sir.
Sir.
All right, cool.
Yes.
All right.
And what I'm doing here is just creating some more content. So I'm going to have a layer called people, and I'm going to put this person here on that layer. There we go. I can put this layer on top, and I can better position this layer I'm using the arrow keys to manipulate the layer.
I know you should maybe get the idea of how we add the different elements, right? And you guys can also add your own elements as well, right? You don't necessarily have to follow my lead. All right, so I'm going to leave it here for this one for you to figure out how to do the rest of this.
Put them behind the elevation layer so that they are pretty much behind that layer there. Now of course I would need to fill this in, so I would need to go back to this layer here and use my paint bucket tool, and perhaps I can even fill this with a white color. So let's get a closer color to white and maybe fill like that. To fill these balcony items here, I could maybe use a gradient, earth tone, like maybe that. No, that's a bit too heavy. Something like that to get so that it has a nice curved look. There we go. There we go.
All right, now what do you think, guys? You know, you don't have to do yours like mine. You don't have to use the same cars as mine. You can use your own versions, but they're going to have to be PNG files definitely for it to work, right? And you're going to go through and color those things. Now I want to just point you in the right direction for the floor plan, and then I'm going to leave you to finish that one on your own. All right, because it's the same process for floor plans pretty much.
We're going to repeat the exact same process, but instead of inserting elevation figures, we are going to insert plan figures in plan. So if you remember the same process, what do we do first? Well, we need to select the plan. We need to put it on a layer, so we're going to call it plan, right? When it is, so you need to select everything here and go and select the plan layer and say send to current layer. Now what you'll notice is that you can get a little bit more organized with your plans, with your layer in here. Now that you have pretty much have everything on either the plan or elevation layer, most of these layers coming from AutoCAD are no longer in use. So you could actually delete them. And of course you don't want to delete your text layer, but you would delete all the other layers from AutoCAD. So you would just end up with the layers that you are gonna use. All right, now, okay, so now that we have the plan layer, what we're gonna do is select the plan layer, and we're gonna use the live paint group again and turn this into a live paint group. Click once and it is now a live paint group. So now I'm able to use the paint bucket to fill in the walls here. So in this case, I might want to use a color. This time let's use a much darker tone color. So I will go back to I could start with a earth tone and maybe use a very deep brown. Then I can go to my my color panel and tweak the brown to get the exact flavor that I want to get. After I get the right tone of brown, I think that's what I want there. Maybe I want to get it a bit more red. There. Then I need to just drag it into my swatches so that it's now saved.
All right, guys. By the way, is there any questions? Is there any questions so far on how you would do this? Hope you guys are. Is there anything that's not working for anybody that's trying to follow? No. How do you get the gradient? So the gradient we got from the library. We didn't make the gradient from scratch. So in Illustrator, remember we use our swatches panel. So I need to turn on my swatches panel here. Swatches, which is this guy. And then in the swatches panel, you have your swatch library. And this is where you have all of these guys. So if you look under gradients, there's a bunch of gradients with different themes. So if I choose, for example, foliage, then I get a whole library of gradients that has to do with foliage. All right. So hope that answers the question. All right. Okay, good. All right. So let's proceed.
Fill in these walls here. There we go. Oops. Now the key thing is you want to follow the same principle as the elevation. You want to select colors that also go well together. So that these glass blocks here, we perhaps want to choose like a blue. And I'll go around like that. Any color that you accidentally fill, like this would be like a nice green. So I would want to maybe go to my nature and choose foliage and pick one of these green colors. Let me save that in my swatches panel. And notice that I can't fill this area green because it doesn't close off here, right? But that's okay. Now for your floor, you probably want to use a very light kind of color. So maybe I would go back to my gradients and maybe go to a earth tone, and I could pick one of these gradient color. That's actually a bit too bright. Now in most cases you might want to tweak your floor color. So what I suggest is for your gradient, a gradient is not a single color, it is two colors. If you choose to use a single color, like let's say that color, then you would tweak it using the same color panel, and I would try to make it a little lighter, very light, and let's save that in our swatches as well. There we go. So then I would try to fill in these areas, and maybe I would give the rooms a slightly different tone. So I might want to go to my color guide. Now I might be going a little faster now because most of this process is very similar, you know, where we're basically just applying colors. Right, let's make this a lighter color. There we go. That looks a bit better. And let's make that a color. And let's put another color like that out here for the balcony. Alright, so you know, you can choose any color you wish, but this would be my choice for colors. Now as it relates to the fixtures, now with the fixtures, for things like the countertops, You might want to use a nice brown kind of color. There we go. Make it a little bit darker so it's more pronounced. Like that. And maybe for the closets as well. There we go. And for the actual fixtures, what you would do is use the same method you use for the vehicles, for the entourage, where you would drag in that entourage here. Wait, before I do it, let me create a layer. So we're going to create a new layer and call that maybe fixtures. Then I want to browse to my downloaded folder and drag in that fixture layer. Right now it's pretty huge. There it is. So I want to make it a bit small so I can use my transform and just resize that really quickly using the mouse wheel. Alright. Can spin this
By the way,
around.
guys, if you want access to these furniture items,
and
they are all in the working folder. Alright. So that's what they are. Or you can download your own if you want.
Let's make it smaller again. You can just type in a value, maybe like 20. There we go. And we're gonna rotate that and make it smaller. And perhaps put it here. Use the mouse to get a more precise alignment. There we go. And pretty much you would use this throughout. Now there is something I want to highlight, because now you're going to have to lay out large spaces like this, and this is where your design intuition comes in. So if you don't have a furniture layout existing, then what you can do is use a reference image of a living room. Google a picture of a living room and then try and match that layout. So see, if I look for living room plan, there we go, and we could perhaps pick something that is a bit similar to what we are producing, and we can use that as a kind of guide. Actually, let's see, let's try and find one that would kind of look like what we have. So this is one approach. Now, if you don't need to be using a guide, you could just look through the categories of furniture and just create your own kind of designs. So for example, I'm going to drag in 3 different bits of furniture here. I'm going to resize them again. There we go. And an interesting thing to note, in this case, notice that this furniture looks a bit like it's floating, and also it's a bit out of scale. So you want to now make sure that your furniture is to scale. So let's say that we wanted to make the living area here, that, and maybe like that. Actually, we're going to use back, let's make a copy of this, use it there. Let's make this a little bigger. The scale is slightly off, and let's rotate this one like that. Now what you might notice is that in this case, this furniture looks almost like it is actually floating, and you might notice that some of the assets you use have this kind of feel. So what you would need to do in this case is to add a drop shadow. Now to add a drop shadow, you're going to go to your, we don't need this right now. Alright, to add a drop shadow, you're going to access your appearance panel. So this is a whole new panel that we're getting introduced to, and you basically use this panel to add effects, and effects you can see here with the symbol, and every time you add an effect, it adds to the listings in this list here. So right now we don't have any effects in that listing, so to add an effect what we need to do is click the effect icon. Then we need to go to stylize and then drop shadow. Now once you do that, you're going to notice that you get a kind of weird drop shadow, so you need to adjust the blur. There we go, and adjust the distance. There we go, choose OK, and then we have a drop shadow there. So notice now the furniture looks a bit more grounded in the scene. Now you might notice that these effects, that the shadow effects that you're adding looks a bit pixelated, and the reason for that is that the shadow settings is actually set to a low resolution. Now to change that option, just some of your illustrators might have this issue, some may not. To change this option, you want to go to Effect and go to Document Raster Effect Settings, and then you want to change the screen PPI to 300. And once you do that, notice that the shadows get a bit more high resolution. All of these effects get a bit more high resolution. Alright, now I'm only going to show you some examples here, and I'm going to leave you to actually create your own furniture layout. But I want to highlight something. When you click on this furniture here, notice that in your appearance tab it shows you that it has a drop shadow. However, when you click on the next one, which is here, notice that it doesn't have a drop shadow. So this appearance panel keeps track of all your effects that you add to your objects. So in this case, I might want to select multiple objects and then go to effects and stylize, and then add a drop shadow, and it will add to the same thing. Now let's make this a little bit more transparent. There we go. It's still a bit heavy there, so I might want to tweak those shadow settings a little bit. So notice that I can actually select back the same objects, go to drop shadow here, and go back and tweak this setting here. So let's make it 0.5, and let's make it 20% transparent, maybe 30% transparent, and let's make the offset more like that, and choose OK. So you can find the setting that is right for you. Now additionally, remember that there are also like textures that you can place for rugs. So I've just dragged one in a while ago from the same folder. Let's make it a bit small again. There we go. And of course, you know, you would want to put this behind that layer. So let's create a new layer and call it rug. It's a good idea to always keep your layers organized. And I'm going to go to send to current layer. Now, as I said, we need to put the furniture layer. Oh, the furniture was actually not on the furniture layer, so let's do that. Let's get the furniture on the fixture layer, actually. There we go. One of them is left. There we go. So now things are starting to look a bit nicer. And you can see that shadow really adds some depth to the drawing there. Now there are many other objects that you can add. For example, there is also plants that you could add. You know, and this, you can really make the spaces come to life. There are beds, there are tables, there are center tables. This is just one example, but you can use this example to populate the space. And the most important thing to do is to watch your scale. so that, you know, if it's too big, you need to just resize everything so that it's the correct scale. This is perhaps the most challenging thing that you might have to do, to watch your scale. Now, the idea is to now go in and populate all these rooms with plants and furniture to make it very populated and to make it a very nice presentation floor plan. So when you are complete with your presentation, elevation, and floor plan, you will save this as a PDF file and upload. Take note that only what is on the artboard will be produced in the PDF, so you need to ensure that your drawings are on the artboard. Also remember, your text layer must be on so that your rooms can be labeled. You can move these labels around to more appropriate places, and you can also edit them. There we go. There we go. Then ensure that the drawing labels are there, and give your drawing a title using the text tool when you're done. Here we go. So we want to give your drawing a title, and we want to call it DDM Exercise 4. And let's put that in the middle using the text tool. Let's make it a little bit bigger. So let's try font size 21. There we go. And then we want to name this presentation elevation. And then we want to copy this label here. Control C, Control V. And then we want to call this presentation plan.
All right, guys. So that is it for our exercise today. What do you think? That wasn't too difficult? Okay. Gianna say it's easy breezy. All right, so yeah, we made some good time today actually, because it's we have pretty much an hour, almost an hour and a half left. Right, hour and a half. Yeah. So as per usual, guys, I want you to use the time to finish up the exercise, right? So next week, so what we're going to actually do next week is we're not going to go into exercise 5 just yet. We're actually going to do our first assignment, and it's going to be our studio-based assignment. So we're going to move into InDesign, and InDesign will take the form of an exercise. You're going to be graded for it. But here's what I want you guys to do. We are going to use as content for using InDesign, we're going to be using your studio project, your latest one that you have done. So you guys have done what? Ritual? Am I right? That's what we spoke about the last time.
Yes, sir.
Right. So I want you to, when you come to class next week, I want you to select, let's see here. Let's use the ritual project since that's the latest one. And I want you to have ready some of the images and content that you used in your ritual presentation. We're going to use them to learn InDesign with next week. So make sure you have the InDesign installed and ready to go for next class. All right, guys. But that is it. That is it for class today. Right? Any more questions before we go? Anybody good? Anybody think they will have any trouble with this exercise?
Sir.
All right, cool. All right, so go ahead and use the time to finish it up. Same old, same old. And then as you submit it, I will mark it. So everything's supposed to be marked up to date, including those who might have submitted after I marked. I think I got everything up to date to today. So I'm pretty much just waiting for this to come in now to mark this one. But that is it for class today. I will see you guys next week. Right? Same time. All right, guys?
Bye, sir.
Okay, bye.
Good night, sir. Thank you.
Okay, cool. And as usual, I will make the recording available so you guys can use it to help out with the exercise. Take care. Rachel, you had a question? Oh, my bad. I just saw your hand. What's up? Are you typing or? Stop the recording.